Hi, I'm Ryan Dixon, and I read the book The Maze Runner by James Dashner. The book is 374 pages. Okay, so in the center of the maze is the Glade, and the Glade is surrounded by a large wall called the Doors, which protects the Gladers from ferocious creatures in the maze. And the maze surrounds the Doors, a large maze they don't know how to get out of. Inside the maze are the ferocious creatures, called the Grievers. And the Grievers are large, sluggish-like creatures that will sting you, and the sting is tremendously painful, and it causes you to go through something called the changing, which is a memory state see where you see all kinds of memories from before you were submitted into the Glade. So every month, someone new is submitted into the Glade through the box, and it's all guys. It's always a guy. It's all guys that live in the Glade. Everyone in the Glade has a specific job. One of the more common, or one of the more like talked about jobs is called a runner. And the runners go out into the maze, map it out, explore it, and try and find ways to escape the maze, find a way out of the maze. So they have all kinds of maps made to get out of the maze. So Thomas, the main character, is brought into the Glade. He has no recollection at all of his past life. So, and all the people inside the maze are called Gladers. So, the maze has rules, and the main rule is that if you're not a runner, you're not allowed to go out into the maze. Or the Glade has rules, you're not allowed to go out into the maze. So a day after Thomas arrives in the Glade, a girl named Teresa is brought up in the box into the Glade. This is very surprising because she's a girl, and it's the only girl in the Glade, so all the guys are excited, surprised, they don't know what to think about it. And she is said to be the last one to arrive. And when she gets there, she goes into a coma. So as Thomas learns about the Glade, he learns about the runners. He instantly has an urge to join the runners, but you can't just join the runners. So one day, Albie, the elder of the Glade, he is stung by a Griever. And when Thomas sees that he's stung by Griever, Thomas runs out into the maze, breaking the rule, and runs out in the maze and saves Albie and fends off some of the Grievers by leading them off a cliff. Everyone in the Glade notices this and pretty much notices that Thomas is a great applicant for a runner and that he showed bravery and courage. And that was my favorite part when he saved Albie, because you almost felt like you were Thomas and that you were doing it, and that in reading the book you also felt the need to save Albie. So after Thomas saves Albie, they get back and they need to punish Thomas because he did break the rule of going into the maze. So they give him 1 day in prison, but when he gets out, they elect him Keeper of the Runners. Keeper of the Runners is like the leader of the runners, very great. Thomas is new, but he's a great runner, and everyone knows it. So he goes out on a run as a runner into the maze, and they find a transparent hole, which Thomas names the Griever Hole. And when they return to the Glade after finding the Griever Hole, Thomas finds out that he has a telepathic connection with Teresa, the girl who arrived, who went into a coma. And Teresa tells him through their mind that her name is Teresa and that she has triggered the ending. And after that, Teresa wakes up. And right after Teresa wakes up, everything in the Glade starts to change. The sky turns gray, and that night, the doors of the Glade don't open, which is very bad because the doors are the protection for all the Gladers and the runners, so they no longer have protection from the Grievers. And that kind of caused havoc because that night, of course, the Grievers come into the Glade because they're not being blocked by the doors, which causes people to retreat into the maze. Gally is Thomas's kind of sort of enemy. Galley said that he saw Thomas in one of his memories when he was stung by a griever, and immediately decided Thomas doesn't trust Thomas, suspicious of Thomas. He's like his enemy, his foe. And when the grievers enter the glade, Galley pretty much like throws himself into the grievers, committing suicide. And when they retreat back into the maze, they discover that all the maps that the runners made have been burned and destroyed, which is bad because now they don't know how to get through the maze by the maps the runners made. But Thomas does discover, and whenever Teresa woke up, I forgot to mention, he builds a strong connection with Teresa, Thomas and Teresa. He builds a strong connection, and they become good friends. And when they find out that the maps that were destroyed weren't actually the maps, those were decoys. There's the real maps in a weapon room, and Thomas and Teresa just find the maps in the weapon room, but they don't know how to read them. So Thomas, desperate for answers, feels the need that he needs to be stung by a griever. He'll go through a memory state, and it'll help them all. So he goes and gets stung by a griever, and 1 minute. And when he's stung by a griever, he goes through the changing phase, which is where you see all kinds of new memories. And when he wakes up from the changing phase, he tells the Delators that the maze isn't supposed to be solved. They're all just there for a test by the creators who created the test, and it's just a test to test their strength. This infuriates all the Delators, and they want to stop it. So Thomas says that they need to go to the hole that he discovered, the griever hole, and they need to go through the hole, and they need to enter a code on a computer that will stop the whole test, the whole simulation, the test. So the Delators, Thomas and all of them, they head out to the hole. And when they reach the hole, they're met by a whole group of grievers defending the hole. So all the Delators, except for Thomas, Chuck, and Chuck is like Thomas's best friend. Thomas, Chuck, and Teresa, they all sneak off into the hole while the grievers are being fought off by the Delators. And when they get in the hole, the grievers follow, and Thomas and Chuck fight off the grievers while Teresa enters the code. And right when the code is entered, all the grievers pretty much disappear, and the simulation's over. And then all the Delators come in, like half of them are dead from fighting off the grievers, but the other half, they come in, meet with Teresa and Thomas and Chuck, and a door opens at the end of the hole, and they all go through the hole and are met by a woman and a hooded figure, and the hooded figure takes off his hood, and it's Galley, who they all thought was dead, but wasn't. And Galley pulls out a knife and throws it at Thomas as like a final test, and Chuck dives in front of Thomas, saving Thomas, but killing himself. And Chuck's final words, he told Thomas to find his mother. Thomas attacks Galley. Galley doesn't kill Galley, and then a group of rescuers come in to the building where the creators are, attack the creators, save the Delators, and they tell them just to get on a bus. They don't explain, they just say, get on this bus, and they move them to like a building, with like a dorm, you could say, and they feed them, give them beds, and the book ends. My favorite character was probably Thomas or Teresa. I liked their connection the best because I thought it was really interesting how, right when Teresa showed up, Thomas felt that he had a connection with her, and then they had the telepathic connection. And then when she woke up, they became friends, love, whatever, and I liked that. I liked the book. I had to read it fast, but I did enjoy it, and I'm excited to read the next book. Thank you.